Just let me know when it's live. Mr. Mayor, it is 5:30 p.m. and the live stream has commenced. You may begin your meeting.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Council, residents, members of SLT, and presenter. I see we have quorum. I call this meeting into session, public meeting under the Planning Act for Wednesday, March the 19th at 5:30 p.m. And the first order of business is the land acknowledgement statement. I have the honor of doing that today, so I shall begin. The town of Pelham is situated on treaty land, steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattawandawang, Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island live and work in Niagara. Town of Pelham stands in solidarity with all Indigenous peoples, past and present, acknowledging that our high standard of living is a result of the resources and lasting friendship of Indigenous peoples. I now turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We will begin with some opening remarks. Public meeting under the Planning Act on Wednesday, March 19th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. The town of Pelham is holding hybrid public meetings. A hybrid meeting involves a mixture of in-person and remote attendance participation. Please note, no decisions have been made prior to this public meeting. The Planning Department will be providing a presentation regarding the subject application. Decorum. Public meetings under the Planning Act are formal meetings requiring decorum, meaning all comments are to be made through the chair. If you have pre-registered to speak virtually or are participating in person, you will be given an opportunity to address the committee at the public portion of the meeting. If someone ahead of you has made the same comments that you wish to make, there is no need to repeat the same comments. Please keep all comments concise. If you are live streaming and wish to submit a comment live, please email clerks@pelham.ca. Inappropriate comments and behavior, such as clapping, will not be tolerated. Please note, if decorum is lost, the meeting may be recessed and persons will be asked to leave. If you wish to receive a copy of the notice of decision, please contact the planner responsible for the application in writing as soon as possible. Contact information is to follow the presentation. Contact information can also be found at the Town of Pelham website. Mr. Mayor, that brings us to item 3. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson that the agenda for the March 19th public meeting under the Planning Act, special committee meeting of the whole, be adopted as circulated. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. After viewing the agenda, does any councillor have any comments to make on the agenda? Not seeing any, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And I see none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, that now brings us to item 4, being disclosure of pecuniary interest.
Thank you. After viewing the agenda, does any council member have a pecuniary interest or general nature thereof to declare? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That now brings us to item 5. I will now read the opening statement into the record. Town of Pelham application for zoning bylaw amendment 286 Canberra Road, file number AM-01-2025. Zoning bylaw amendment to allow the construction of a new dwelling in a different location on the subject property. The Planning Act requires under Section 34 that council must hold at least one public meeting for informing the public in respect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. This public meeting has been called to satisfy this requirement. Notice of this meeting was provided by prepaid first-class mail to all persons who are listed as owners in the last revised assessment roll within 120 meters of the subject property on February 26, 2025. The notice provided information on the property and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. In addition to providing information, we will also receive any comments which any member of the public may wish to offer. If you wish to receive a copy of the notice of decision, please contact the clerk in writing as soon as possible. Contact information is available on the town's website and will also be displayed on the last slide of the staff presentation to follow shortly. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the Town of Pelham to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Town of Pelham before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. In closing, we stress that at this point, no decisions have been made on the proposed amendment, and therefore any comments received will be considered by council. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have Ms. Shannon Larocque, Manager of Planning, here with us this evening representing the file. Ms. Larocque, you may proceed with your presentation.
Ms. Larocque, thank you for joining us this afternoon, and you have the floor.
Just bear with me while I try to screen share this. Got it.
There you go.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Well, we've skipped ahead a slide, but that's okay. I know what the first slide said. The application tonight is for a property located at 286 Canberra Road, and it's for a zoning bylaw amendment application. The property is located on the south side of Canberra Road, east of Effingham Street, and it currently contains a small single detached dwelling on it. Property is located adjacent to the town's bulk water filling station, and it's surrounded by residential uses and some commercial uses as well, right in the heart of Ridgeville. The requested zoning bylaw amendment would rezone the property from the village commercial and rural residential zones to the rural residential zone. It would also increase the maximum front yard for the new dwelling to 21.49 meters. The effect of the application will be to allow a new single detached dwelling to be constructed in the owner's desired location on the property. And so the project will involve demolition of the existing dwelling, which sits up close to Canberra Road, and construction of a new, larger dwelling and a septic system further back from Canberra Road. In addition, there is a watercourse on the west side of the property, and that watercourse will be maintained. There will be a 10-meter buffer from that watercourse, and that buffer will be required to be planted. According to the provincial planning statement, the property is designated rural settlement area, and healthy, integrated, and viable rural areas are to be supported by accommodating an appropriate mix and range of housing in rural settlement areas. And when directing development in rural settlement areas, planning authorities are to give consideration to locally appropriate rural characteristics, scale of development, and also the provision of appropriate services. This property is also located within the Greenbelt Plan, and it's within a settlement area in the Greenbelt Plan. For the most part, the policies in the Greenbelt Plan don't apply within the settlement areas, but there are policies that indicate that limited growth is permitted through intensification in these areas as long as appropriate water and sewer services are provided. And in the Niagara Official Plan, the lands are designated rural settlement. The rural settlement areas are the focus of development outside of urban area boundaries, and rural settlements are to be serviced with sustainable private water and wastewater treatment systems. And in addition, the property is noted as having that watercourse on site, which is a type 2 fish habitat, and that's part of the region's core natural heritage system. In the town's official plan, the property is still designated specialty agriculture. And I note that as part of the new official plan that town staff are working on, that will be updated to reflect the provincial and regional designations. So it will be coming into a rural settlement designation. But at present, it is specialty agriculture. specialty agriculture designation, permits agricultural uses, and single detached dwellings, among other uses. And the town's zoning bylaw, it zones the property village commercial and rural residential. The rural residential area is the orange on the slide there, and it generally reflects the location of the existing house on site. And then the remainder of the property is right now village commercial. The intention is to apply the rural residential zone across the entire property to allow residential use across the entire property. And in terms of site-specific requests, the only item that won't comply with the rural residential zone is the maximum front yard requirement. So the request is to increase that to 21.49 meters from the requirement of 6. Everything else is compliant. And the application was circulated for comment. A number of comments were received. From town planning staff, we noted that an archaeological clearance letter will be required from the province prior to building on the site. Building had no comments at this time, but did advise that demolition permits and new construction permit will be required prior to demolition and new construction. And town public works had no issues with the proposed setback location. They did indicate that a lot grading and drainage plan would be required at the building permit stage, and that if there were any changes to the driveway, that too would require approval from their department. The Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority had no concerns with the application at this time, but did advise that they will require an NPCA work permit before doing any alterations on the site. And the Niagara region similarly advised that the letter from the province regarding the archaeological assessment would be required. They had no objection to the zoning application, provided that the watercourse and the 10-meter buffer are put into an appropriate environmental protection zone. And they recommended that the restoration plan be implemented to the satisfaction of the town through a development agreement. And finally, they advised that a sewage system permit will be required in accordance with the Ontario Building Code. At the present time, no public comments have been received, but I expect we will hear some shortly. And some technical reports and plans were received with the application. They include a planning justification report, a stage 1 and 2 archaeological assessment, and also the landscape planting plan for the 10-meter buffer to the watercourse. Copies of these reports and plans are available on the town's website through the Engaging Pelham page and /286 Canberra Road. And as noted earlier, no decisions or recommendations regarding this application are being made tonight. Once all of the comments have been received and reviewed, town staff will prepare a recommendation report for council's decision. And if anyone wishes to receive notices, please send your contact information as soon as possible. And that contact information can be sent to me through the information on this slide. Shannon LaRocque, Manager of Planning, sllarocque@pelham.ca, or extension 319 at the town. And in addition, if there's any questions or comments regarding this application following the meeting, please contact me through the same means. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. LaRocque. I turn to the clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have Mr. Ethan Lamont of Upper Canada Consultants here with us this evening. He is the agent representing the applicant and has a presentation for the committee.
Great. Thanks for joining us this evening, Ms. Lamont. Well, you have the floor.
So good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Ethan Lamont. I'm a senior planner with Upper Canada Consultants, representing the proponent for the zoning bylaw amendment application made for 286 Canberra Road. So I'll run through a short presentation. A lot of this information Shannon went over already, and then it'll be available for questions afterwards. So the property subject to the zoning bylaw amendment application is addressed as 286 Canberra Road. It's about 1.28 acres in area with 183 feet of frontage on Canberra Road and 48 feet of frontage on Effingham Street. The property is currently occupied by a one-story single detached dwelling. The property also contains a watercourse which travels along the westerly property boundary, and the balance of the property is manicured lawn. The surrounding area is comprised of a mix of land uses. So to the immediate west is the bulk water station. Further to the west are commercial uses in downtown Ridgeville. To the north and south are residential properties, and there's some more commercial properties further to the east. Under the provincial land use classification, the property is located within the Ridgeville Rural Settlement, which is also called a hamlet. The property also has dual residential and commercial zoning under the town's zoning bylaw, which I'll touch on in a couple of slides. So the proposed development for the subject property involves the removal of the existing dwelling and the construction of a new two-story single detached dwelling. The new dwelling is proposed to be about 4,200 square feet in total area, with about 3,800 square feet of living space. And since there's no available municipal sewer, the dwelling will be serviced with a private septic system. The dwelling is proposed to be located a bit further back from the street than the existing dwelling is. This placement is consistent with the surrounding residential dwellings along Canberra Road, which tend to have larger setbacks from the street. The placement of the dwelling also considers the watercourse on the property. So there's a 10-meter regulated buffer along the watercourse, which is proposed to be naturalized. And the house is located outside of this buffer with an additional 2 meters setback from the buffer to ensure that the side of the house is accessible without encroaching into that protected area. So this slide shows some renderings of the proposed dwelling. So the images on the left show the dwelling from the front, and the images on the right show the rear of the dwelling from various angles. So as previously noted, the property currently has split zoning. So as you can see on the map, the property is mostly village commercial with the exception of a small area zoned as rural residential, which generally coincides with the location of the existing dwelling. So the proposed amendment seeks to rezone the entire property as rural residential to allow for the construction of a new dwelling in a different location. One site-specific provision for the maximum front yard setback is being requested to allow for the placement of the dwelling further back from the street. Otherwise, all of the standard zoning requirements, including height, lot coverage, side and rear setbacks, are being maintained. So 2 supporting studies were submitted with the application. So these are the archaeological assessment, which determined that there's no artifacts located on the property, and we're awaiting the ministry clearance for that report. And the second is the buffer planting plan, which demonstrates how the 10-meter watercourse buffer will be naturalized. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your attention, and I can certainly respond to any questions there may be.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Turn to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can confirm that we do not have any pre-registered speakers, nor have we received any public comments. So if anyone in the gallery wishes to make a verbal comment, I would ask that you please make your way to the center podium. Please turn on the microphone and state your name for the record before proceeding.
There you go. You got it.
Okay. My name is Beverly Sneath. My husband and I live on the property to the south of the property that's being discussed today. And we really don't have any concerns about the building. The only thing that we were concerned with, or I was more concerned about, was my vegetable garden being so close to the septic system that they're planning to put in. So I'm not sure that that has any bearing on it or not, but I just thought I'd mention that. So that's it.
Thank you. To the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can confirm that it is now 5:49 PM, and I have not received any comments to the pelham.ca, clerks@pelham.ca email address, so that we have not had any emails from there. And you may close the public portion of the meeting and move to committee input.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'll give the SNEES, any other comments you'd like to make at this time? Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. So now I open the comments to committee. I turn to council. Any comments on the presentations? Councilor Eckert.
Just a couple of clarifications and questions maybe, and I'm not sure who to direct this to, but when I went down to look at that property, the Class 2 fish way, with all the melt we've had and rain and stuff, there doesn't seem to be a lot of water in there. We may have a lot of frogs in there, but I don't know about fish. But the setback is far enough back that everybody's happy that there's nothing that's going to run off or interfere, including that septic bed.
Go ahead, Mr. Lalonde.
That's it. Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, okay, Ms. Lalonde.
The Niagara Region environmental staff, as well as the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, attended the site and viewed the watercourse as well. There was agreement that it is type 2 fish habitat, though you very likely did not see any fish in there. Often these classifications are that it's perhaps contributing to something downstream that is fish habitat through food or other means. So it has been confirmed to be type 2 fish habitat by the criteria that exist. Both agencies were satisfied with the 10-meter setback and also with the setback that's shown on the plan for the septic system, subject to the requirement of an NPCA work permit and also that planting plan that was included with the application.
Thank you.
I would also, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd also point out too that there's a setback for septic systems relative to a watercourse, and that's determined through, I believe it's a 30-meter setback, and that will be reviewed and approved through the building permit process.
Councilor.
Thank you. And so I can see where the septic system is in that kind of that back southerly corner, okay? Now, does that butt up against the neighbors, and what about their concerns that the lady brought forward?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so we are showing a septic bed in a location. It is preliminary at this point of time. It's based on an actual bed size from a designer, but the actual, like the measurements and the configuration may change. Again, I would turn to the building code, which determines setbacks relative from a septic system to a property line. So that bed would have to comply with those minimum setbacks in the OBC, which I believe from a property line is 3 meters. So it needs to be at least 3 meters away from the neighbor's property line.
Councilor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any comments on this side? I see Councilor Nesnick.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So currently, I assume that there is a septic system already. So are you building a new septic system, or will you tie into the current one that's there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there would be a new septic system to serve the dwelling.
Okay, can you tell me where the current one is off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure, no.
Okay, so I assume it's probably back up where the new house is going to go. So you'd have to do some, no, it's not. Oh, I
no,
see the neighbor
sorry, I would
shaking his
assume
head.
so, yeah. Or maybe the neighbor knows.
Okay, so that'll be a brand-new septic system. So no concerns about it running into the water course to the west of that?
It doesn't run to the water course to my knowledge.
The new one?
Oh, the new one? The new one would not be allowed to discharge into the water course, no.
And it wouldn't be allowed to go south either into the neighboring properties?
That's correct, yes. Yeah.
I'm trying to think, because it, where it is in terms of height. So where the new home is planned to go is actually higher than either the south or the west side, though? Or is it lower? Okay. If as long as it's not too much higher, because you don't want runoff going into those two areas, so thank you. So if Mr. Sneath in the background there seems to know the area well, so that's important though for runoff. Thank you very much. And then currently, it's curious that is zoned village commercial when it's already like a water course, so it's kind of you would have thought that it would have been zoned environmental, so it's interesting that was zoned village commercial. So I think this land use for this of a single dwelling home would be a positive step in protecting that section as well, and just rezoning it all to RR2. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I see Councillor Kerr.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess personally, having been through the building of a new dwelling and installing a septic system, one thing I learned very quickly was that the requirements of the new septic systems are pretty stringent. There should not be, quote, runoff from a septic system if it's properly installed. They have to look at the proper drainage patterns relative to it. It is to be a contained system. As an example, just to put in frame of reference, my brother, who had built his dwelling, had to have almost 400 feet of weeping tile with his dwelling construction. With my house construction, which was larger, I have 104 feet of weeping tile. It's significantly smaller, and that just shows the changes in 20 years from this. So I understand the concerns of the neighbors, but a properly constructed septic system should not be an issue. The setbacks relative to water courses, again, were established many years ago on existing septic systems. The newest ones now, with the drainage and the setups with them, properly designed, properly installed, you won't see active runoff. Their mechanism is not to produce a runoff. It's actually, it's a filtration system and has evaporative tendencies. So the old septic systems that people may remember that had kind of leak spots in them periodically, and they found them. I don't think I've run into a newly installed one in the last 30 years that's had that problem. So I'm okay with how they're doing it based on the existing in the building codes.
And any other comments, Mr. Kerr or Councillor Kerr?
No, the distances and everything, I understand what the request is for. It's an extremely large piece of property, so it's just one of those things where an old dwelling no longer fulfills what a person wants to do, and I'm in support of the application.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments from members of the committee? Not seeing any. I turn to the clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, if there are no other further committee comments, that brings us to the presentation of resolutions. And I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrand that committee receive report 2025-075, information report, application for zoning bylaw amendment 286 Canberra Road, as it pertains to file number AM-01-2025, and that committee direct planning staff to prepare the recommendation report on this topic for council's consideration. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further comments on the resolution? I see none. Put it to the vote. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Resolution passes.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Nisnik that committee receive the applicant's presentation for information.
Thank you. Any further comments? Not seeing any. Call the vote. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries.
And thank you. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink that committee receive the verbal presentations made by the public. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further comments? Not seeing any. Call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed. Motion carries.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings you to adjournment. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Kerr that the special committee of the whole public meeting under the Planning Act be adjourned.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And I see none opposed. Motion carries. This